Okay, I'm gonna go here and create a new file. Let's call it server.js. So under our directory using Express, I created a new file called server.js. This is where I will write the JavaScript or Node.js code. Let's start off. It's a bit of boilerplate at first. So to require the node module we installed or library or package, you can say require and call it as a function, parentheses, and then under quotes, either single or double, doesn't matter, the name of the node package, in this case, Express. This has to match the same thing as the package.json dependencies entry. Okay, and then we can place this in a variable. I will call it simply the same name as the module. Once we got that express variable, you can call it as a function, and that will return to you an instance of what we call app. You can store that in a variable. Typically, we say it app or app. And finally, you can call, there's a function listen on this app object. So app is an object, so you can say dot to access an attribute or a method that is a function that belongs to this object. That's called listen, and call it as like this. You need to give it a port. So we can say 3000. That's the typical port we use when we start off. Okay, so that's the very basic server. Now, let me explain again. So we installed Express, which is a code that somebody else wrote. So we downloaded that with npm. And to be able to use that in our own code base, we do require with the name of the module there. We take that and put it in a variable. Usually I use the same name as the module for the variable. And then we call this express function to get an app object. And that app object can call the listen function with the port that the server will be running. Okay, so now I'm going to go. Actually, I can open a terminal from Visual Studio Code, so I don't have to change all the time. So I'm going to press Control back tick, or you can, if you use Visual Studio Code, it's terminal here. So I can choose, this one's use PowerShell. I can use different things if you use Visual Studio Code. For example, use command prompt. So I have a command prompt tab here. So I can type commands here as well. So I'm going to say node space server.js. So I make sure I'm in the same project directory as the file, the server. So I press enter. I'm not going to see anything, but it's actually running. Let me confirm using the browser. I'm going to go to localhost colon 3000. Yeah, so if I see cannot get slash, that means it's working. Let me make it bigger. Okay, so how's everybody doing? Yeah, so I went to my terminal. I typed node space server.js. That's the file name for this that I wrote, and enter. So it runs the program. Now you're not going to see anything. You're just going to see empty blank without the command prompt. You see there's no prompt here. It's just blank. It's actually running the server. So it's listening, right, to requests. So the address here that you have to go to is localhost colon the port that you specified on line 5. In this case, the port is 3000. So I have to go to, let me make a comment here, http colon slash slash localhost colon 3000. Now, localhost is usually an alias for 127.0.0.1 IP, like the local. Okay, so if the localhost doesn't work for you, try 127.0.0.1. And you gotta add the port there. All right, somebody just joined. We're doing Express. So we created a node project with npm init, and we installed Express with npm install Express. And we wrote this file server.js, and we ran it in the terminal with node space server.js. Now, this is, like you said, what's going on here? I don't see anything. So that's pretty bad for us to understand what's going on. So we need some feedback. That's why we can add as a second argument to listen, a callback function. Let's add function here. I'll write function keyword. And this callback function will be called as soon as this app or server initiates or starts listening. And we're gonna say to the console a message. So I'm gonna say console.log parentheses, and we're gonna say server is listening. So we have some feedback at http://localhost:3000. Okay, so save that. Now, when I change code, whenever I change my code, I have to go to the terminal, kill my server, and restart or run the program again. We always have to do that. It's kind of tedious. So to kill the server, Control C. When you say Control C, it sends the interrupt signal and it knows how to stop. Once we do that, simply run the command again, node server.js, and that will start it. Now we can see there's servers listening at localhost 3000. Now I understand. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Now we have some feedback. We know what's going on. And you can even control and click this URL here. It will open the browser for you when you have URLs in the log here in the terminal. Hold control and click to follow the link. Now, one thing, if you change the port here, this is going to be wrong, right? So you have to change it here and here. So if you want, you could create a variable like say const port equals 3000 and put a variable here instead of 3000. And you can also put it here if you interpolate a string like dollar port. This is string interpolation, meaning the value of the variable port, which is 3000, gets replaced wherever this is at, so it becomes like that. But in order to use interpolation, the quotes surrounding it must be a backtick. The backtick key is the one where the tilde is next to the one on a US keyboard. So backtick there and backtick here instead of single quotes. That's the only way we can interpolate JavaScript. And that's just so if you change the port here to whatever, 4000, it will also change here and there automatically. So you don't have to write it twice. Now, because I changed my code, I always have to go to the terminal, Control C to interrupt, and then run it again so it runs the new code. There's no change, right? We just did some variable, no different from before.